Welcome back. In this video, we are going to talk about another one of the important concept of data structure. That is, in this video, we are going to talk about arrays. What is array? How we can store the data in an array, and what are the advantages and disadvantages. Same thing we are going to do with the linked list. What is linked list? How we are going to store a data in the linked list, and advantages and disadvantages. But last but not the least, after that we are going to compare arrays and linked list. In which situation what we should prefer, either we should array or either we should use linked list. Now, before we are going to talk about arrays and linked list, we have to talk about how memory works in a computer science. In computer, data was always stored in a block of cells, and each block of a cell has an address. Each time we wanted to store an item in memory, we can ask the computer for some data and some storage space. So, and it gives you an address where we can store an item. Okay. Now, if you wanted to store multiple items, there are two ways to do that. First one is arrays, and another one is now, in which scenario we have to use arrays and in which scenario we have to use list. It completely depends on use case. Now, what we will do, let's see how arrays work, in which use cases it should be preferable and which use case it isn't. In computer science, an array consisting of a collection of an element. Let's say you wanted to add 10 names, okay, and you are planning to store all names with the help of an array. So how we are going to do that? For example, let's say this is a chunk of a space that was given by to space 10 names. Here I am going to store one name, here another names, like that I am storing 10 names, and the capacity of this place is to store 10. After some time being, our requirements got increased. What is that? Now I have to store 10 names. Okay, so there is one problem came. Problem is what? I have only allocated for a memory location of 10 names now, and now requirement is 20, correct? 10 more names got added. 10 more names are got added. So what I can do, I will remove this chunk of memory location to move to a completely different one, which has an allocated space for . Okay, and the capacity of this chunk of memory location is 20. So our problem got resolved. Okay, that is perfect. But now again time goes past by and more names are started getting added. So now let's say the 30 names we have to add. So you can understand that every time to removing from one chunk of memory location to a completely chunk of different memory location, increasing, this is very a cumbersome job. So there is one solution we can do that. What we can do, we will take a chunk of memory location and we will allocate here 100. Okay, this is the capacity of storing 100 names. So what is the benefit for that? So if you wanted to store 10 names, you can easily do that. If the requirement got increased and you have to add 10 more names, that also you can do 20 names, because you have already allocated 100 chunk of memory location, right? So you can easily add 20 names. Now again requirement got increased for plus 10, that also you can do, and like that if it increased up to 100, you can do. That is one feasible solution, but this solution is not that much perfect. I will show you some drawbacks of this problem. The first drawback is you may not need the extra space. For example, here you have stored 10 names and you don't have to increase 10 more. So how many got wasted? 90. For example, let's say we have stored 30 names and 70 memory allocations you don't need, but you still acquired it. So 70 memory allocations got wasted, right? And no one else you are not using it and no one else can use it either. So that is not a good way to do that, correct? Another one is here you have added 100 names. Now what if the requirement change to 110, 120, 200? Then again you have to move this completely array of memory location to a different memory location which we can store more data. So that is also not a good solution. Okay, that is also again repeatedly same thing happening what we wanted to avoid earlier. So we can see that to using an array, and whenever all the time requirement or the data size is increasing, it's not a good solution. So avoid this problem, what we are going to do, we are going to use list. Now in linked list, how data works? In linked list, whenever you store a data here, let's say you have stored here data 1. With the data 1, linked list also store the address. Address of what? Address of next data. So it will point to the next data. And again, what happens here? Again, it is going to store data here, and with the help of data, it can also it will again store the address of the next data, and like that it goes on. So what is the benefit of that? Benefit is if you wanted to store 10 names, you can easily do that. If you wanted to add 20 names, you can do that. There is no wastage of space. If you wanted to add 100 names, that also you can do that. Not a big issue, because every time if you wanted to space in the first add data will acquire the address of the next data, and like that it will goes on, so that no more data will get wasted and you don't have to move every time one chunk of memory location to a different chunk of memory location to store the data. So if linked lists are good for storing the data without fixing anything, fixing the memory space, then what are arrays good for? So what we will do here I am going to take a different editor, and here I am going to compare arrays and linked list. We will see the difference between arrays and linked list, in which section we have to use array and which section we have to use linked list. Okay, so let's see how we can do that. So in arrays, the benefit is we can access the data randomly. So what does that mean? When I was explaining array, then I have told you that array will store the data in a collection of consisting of elements. For example, let's say here some data is provided. Okay, let's say some names are provided, and the indexing position of this array was given here. For example, it always starts from indexing 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you wanted to access indexing 0, you can easily do that. If you wanted to access indexing 4, you can easily do that. Okay, now what about linked list? In linked list, we have seen that one data always carries to the address of our next data, correct? So the problem with that is that you can't randomly access the data, because always one data will carry the address of next data. So you always have to go through sequentially. So in arrays, you can go randomly accessing the data, and here you have to go sequentially. Okay, so that is one difference. Now let's see the runtime of arrays and linked list. Now the reading operation. In reading operation, or in reading operation runtime of array is order of 1, and in linked list the in reading runtime is order of n. We know that order of n is a linear time, order of 1 is a constant time, that we talked in the previous video. What I will do, I will give that video link in the description section, so it will be easier for you to find out now. So we know that order of 1 is faster than order of n. So reading a data in array is faster as compared to a linked list. Now what about inserting a data? In insertion of data, runtime of array is order of n, and in linked list is order of 1. So where I am inserting the data, linked list is faster as compared to arrays. Okay, now what about deleting a value? In deleting, runtime of array is order of n, and linked list is order of 1. So in deleting also we can see that array is slower than linked list. Now we see these differences. Now let's see some use cases to find out in which scenario we should use what. Suppose you wanted to create an app for booking a ticket. It can be for anything, either any type of shows or a movie ticket. Okay, tickets should always be booked in an order format. So which one you are wanted to what we are going to do to store the data, linked list or array? I will prefer to use linked list. Why? Because here we can see insert is going to happen more as compared to linked list. Okay, so we know that insertion is faster than linked list, and the data size can be huge. Okay, it's not fixed that we have to store 10 data, 20 data, or 30 data, or 40 data. Data size can be 10, can be 100, can be 1000, because we are booking a movie ticket. So for that position, what we will do, we are going to prefer linked list, so that if any extra space is left, that should not get wasted. Okay, so to storing a data which we are not sure how much we are going to store, for that we are going to prefer linked list. Now we will take one more use case. In this use case, what we will do, we wanted to create an app to search names from a data directory. Okay, so what I will prefer, arrays or linked list. So I told you here I have to search names. So search names means we are reading a value. Reading means I wanted to search one name, let's say Aditya, that is stored in index 1. I acquired it. Now what about our names? Let's say Vijay. Vijay is stored in the indexing number 25. So I have to acquire that one. So if I will store the data store in linked list, in that scenario, store the names in a linked list, I have to go through sequentially. But here I am accessing indexing 1 now, again, and now I have to access index 25. In that scenario, random accessing is there. So if random accessing there, then I will going to prefer arrays. Okay, so what are the things we covered here? We saw how memory works in computer science, and we also saw what is an array, what is a linked list, how arrays is stored in linked list, how arrays store the data, and how linked list store the data. We saw the runtime of reading, insertion, and delete. Okay, and also we saw different test cases in which scenario we should prefer arrays and which linked list. To summarize all of that, I will say in just a few points. If you wanted to access random elements, go for arrays, and if your data is fixed, go for arrays. But if you wanted to go through sequentially data one by one, you can't jump one data from another one, and insertion is more as compared to reading, then I will prefer go for linked list. Okay, so with that, this is the end of the video, and again in the next video we are going to talk about another one of the important concept of data structure. So stay tuned and keep watching Adhyan channel. Thank you.